All right, welcome back to Diabetes 180. Today's live, we are talking about what to eat in a day to reverse diabetes, more specifically, insulin resistance, the root cause of type 1, and I'm sorry, root cause of type 2 diabetes, and also a big problem if you have type 1 diabetes. So, for any type of diabetic, whether you're a pre diabetic, type 1 diabetic, type 2 diabetic, gestational diabetes, type 1.5 diabetes, you all can suffer from insulin resistance. And by eating and practicing the recommendations we make on this channel, we are talking about reversing insulin resistance. Okay. And so, I hope you are here as much as possible every Monday at 7 p.m. We're in the same place, right? I hope you are here at Monday night at 7 p.m. with us. If you know anyone else who needs this information, let them know we are here Monday night, 7 p.m. every week. Okay, with the exception of next week. Next week we're going to be off, so I do have to do some traveling. So most likely we won't be joining next week, but I will be meeting with you every week, Mondays, 7 p.m. So set your calendar. So if you're watching for the first time, and then welcome. Let us know in the chat who you are, where you're watching from. If you're a viewer for a long time, because we've been doing this for a while, and if you're one of our regulars, then let us know you're here. I always like to see my regulars in the chat. That's always encouraging. So yeah, like I said, we're talking about what to eat in a day to reverse insulin resistance, the root cause of type 2 diabetes, but also a problem in all types of diabetes. Okay. And the place I want to start really is just helping you guys know what to buy. Okay. So if we're going to put foods in a category of buy this and don't buy that, I think the best way to do that is a traffic light guide system. So a lot of programs have traffic light systems where the green light means eat in abundance, buy these foods in abundance. The yellow light is a caution, you can eat these foods, but you want to watch your intake, maybe eat them in moderation. And then the red light foods are going to be the foods that you want to avoid and eliminate. And we're going to talk about them at length in the beginning of our episode today. And then what we're going to do is go into showing you what to eat, right? What we have put together as recommendations for at least a few examples of meals that you can construct with these foods. Okay. So I think that's going to be really practical, super beneficial. And if you guys are already plant based, if you guys are already whole food plant based, let me know in the chat. I'd love to know what you eat right in a day. What are your go-to meals? Okay, so I'm gonna talk about my go-to meals, what I like to eat, what we eat at home, and it's gonna be a total of I think 11 meals, right? So you have some variety. You can choose. Maybe hopefully tonight you can walk away with at least maybe two or three favorites that you want to try this week or next. But the first, I think technically it's actually seven recipes because three of them are oatmeal, okay, but different variations of oatmeal. So you could already tell what one of my favorite meals are, right? But what's nice is these meals are all curated and specifically designed to be low fat, whole food, meaning minimally processed ingredients, plant based, right? So, what is backed by science to be the healthiest way of eating. Okay. So let's start. Okay. So again, as a reminder, join us in the chat. If let us know you're here. Let us know if you have questions as you go through this presentation. I'll be changing my screen a lot, so maybe I won't see your question pop up, but I'll try to be mindful of any questions and checking them out. Okay. All right. But let's go ahead and start with what I said we're going to start with, and that's our traffic light guide system. So let me see where that is going to be. I think that's going to be. Oh, I think it went away. Give me a second. All right, so the first thing I'm going to show you guys is our traffic light guide system. Having to pull this up in a different window. So I'm going to share my screen and you should still see me. All right. Okay, so this is our traffic light guide. I think this is the best way to look at it. All right, so this is our traffic light guide. Okay, please let me know if you're not seeing this. Okay, but it should be on the screen next to me here. My All right, so I think I gave myself a thumbs down. I'm not sure how I did that, but I'm giving this a thumbs up, two thumbs up. Okay, this is guaranteed to be effective. Let me say this first. This way of eating, okay, has been effective for every single person who's gone through our Diabetes 180 program. Every single person who had a goal to drop the A1C, to come off medications, has done so by following this advice. Okay, it does take time. It's not a one-day fix. I always say you do not get diabetes overnight. You're not going to get rid of overnight. But if you follow this meal structure, this meal plan advice, okay, you will get results. We've been doing this for almost 3 years now, and people who are in our membership program, people who are in our coaching program, or people who just interact with us online, people who sometimes have consultations with me, and I guide them, and they call me back or they message me online and say, "Hey, it works. My sugars are better than they've ever been. My A1C dropped 3 points." So this is very effective. That being said, it doesn't make me, that's probably why it's not easy. Okay, you got to think about this, right? What I'm going to show you, let me just kind of go before I go into it, kind of give my disclaimers. Okay, what I'm going to show you as far as the green, yellow, red light foods, for some might seem extreme, but this is the thing: if you want extreme results, you probably have to make extreme changes. If you want moderate change, then yeah, just moderately follow the advice. Okay. The good thing about this is that it doesn't have to be perfect, right? The closer you get to, this way of eating, this style of eating, the better. It's not all or nothing, though. All right, it's not. So just do your best. So keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and go into it. I thought that was necessary to say. All right, so this is our traffic light guide. In our green light section, we have foods that are fresh, frozen whole foods that are not processed and are naturally low in fat. Okay, so these are foods that you can imagine you would find in nature, or in a farm, right? On a tree, a bush, a vine, a branch, right? Plucked and eaten. Minimally processed. Of course, there's some degree of processing in foods, but almost no processing as far as adding bad things to it or taking good things away, right? So this is the green light category. Okay, here in green, we have our leafy vegetables, fruits, and those vegetables include starchy. I specify that on purpose, really intentionally, because many people feel that when you are diabetic, you gotta stay away from starchy vegetables. This is not the case if you're following a low-fat, whole food, plant-based lifestyle. Limiting fat, you're able to increase your carb intake, all right? And you're going to see that soon. It's amazing how people who have I guess, a fear of carbs unnecessarily because of, I guess, just poor nutrition advice. But starchy vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, all green, go eat in as much as you want. Legumes, or all classes of herbs, spices, unprocessed whole grains, mushrooms. And let's give some examples of this, okay? Let's give some examples of this. So this green light foods, you'll find these leafy vegetables can be eaten in abundance. So this is what you want to start shopping for, right? Leafy greens should be eaten as much as possible, multiple times a day. Include them as much as you can in every meal. Fruits, the same story. It's okay to have a fruit bowl, okay? A bowl of fruit. Now, if you are highly insulin resistant, if you're in the beginning stage of changing your diet, right, and you're going from a low carb diet, and you're experiencing hyperglycemia with even small amounts of carbs, you may have to ease into the fruits, starting with berries, okay, low glycemic fruits. So you might have to look up a chart for glycemic levels of fruits and choose the one that are lowest in glycemic level. That being said, though, if you follow this advice fully, I guarantee you can eat every one of these fruits in abundance, because our clients are doing it. Our clients are doing it, eating all these fruits in abundance. Starchy vegetables also get a pass, okay? They're in the green light section because we are eating to reverse the root cause of insulin, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, okay? So starchy vegetables are okay, and non-starchy vegetables, of course, in abundance as well, okay? And then we have our legumes. Lots of options, man. People always ask me, man, what do you eat on a plant-based diet? What do you eat, when you're vegan, right, or vegetarian? Everything, there's a lot of foods that could be included. Spices, use them in abundance. They're medicinal. On our channel, we talk about spices a lot and the different properties of this medicine cabinet of that's spices are. And so unprocessed whole grains also, I know there's a lot of fear when it comes to eating on whole grains. We're going to keep in mind, of course, the degree of processing. We want brown rice, not white rice, right? So we want our grains to hold their color. Quinoa, you know um oatmeal, right? So these can be eaten in abundance. And of course, mushrooms. This is a great replacement for meat. Okay, if you're still struggling with, limiting or eliminating meat, mushrooms and season them up just like you season up your meat. Okay, can be a great replacement for meat. And there's so many different ways to prepare it. We're going to talk about one of these, okay, tonight. Now we go to, let me go back to the top here. Before I do, I want to make sure I don't have any other questions. Greetings to Joan. Thanks for watching us from Boston. Awesome. All right. So let me go back here. So yellow zone foods. Let's talk about the yellow zone. What's in the yellow zone? These are the foods that are not necessarily unhealthy. Okay. So I want to make sure we're specifying why we put them in yellow zone. Their foods in the yellow zone are in the yellow zone because they have been processed. So something good has been taken away, usually fiber, right? Or something bad has been added to it. So maybe I should say not the case for yellow light foods. The ones I listed here, it's mainly that something good has been taken away. That's fiber. Okay. And then number two, it's processed to the point where it's too high in fat or it's naturally high in fat. There are some plant foods that are higher in fat than others. Because of this, if we're trying to eat a low fat diet, we can't overconsume nuts. And as much healthy as avocados are, we want to try to minimize their consumption. Okay, so higher fat plant foods, you can eat them, but you want to minimize or moderate them. Maybe one serving in a day. Okay. So it's not even that you can't eat them every day. Just want to not go crazy, right? So I hope that makes sense. Please let me know if you have questions on that. So that would be like your pasta, sorry, or I should say alternative pasta. So you'd have bean or brown rice based pastas. Those are healthy, but because of the degree of processing, it's better to have the whole bean, right? It's better to have the wholesome source of brown rice, right? So there's lots of different alternative pastas out there. They're okay, and you can eat them, but I would say just they're not as health promoting, okay, as green light foods. That's why they're in the yellow, not green. All right. So nuts and seeds, you probably would guess the problem with these, why they're not green, is because of the high fat content. Dried fruits, you probably would guess because it's not whole fruit, right? You could easily overconsume them and tip the scales towards calorie excess when eating dried fruit. Vegan processed products are often high in fat or other additives. So you want to make sure you're careful and what vegan products. There are some that are healthy. Not all vegan processed foods are created equally. Okay, so we could have a live dedicated just on that. But just soy products, plant milks, those are okay. But just watching that because of their higher fat and degree of processing. Sprouted breads, of course, not as great as getting the wholesome source of whole grains and avocado for the same reason I said before, because higher in fat. Okay, so we can give examples of these in visual format. Okay, and just scrolling past the green light section, you have the yellow light foods, so your nuts and seeds examples, non-sugar coated dried fruit. I add non-sugar here because if it is added sugar, it's not even yellow. If there's sugar, and usually when you look at the packet, the back of the ingredients in the nutrition label section, sugar is the first or if not second ingredient in dried fruit. So no, if it's added sugar in it, we're putting in a red zone. Okay. Um, and I'm hoping my laptop will last. Okay, I got 13%. I should make it. All right, then we have soy products. And so we're gonna put those in the yellow, plant milks, Same story. Sprouted breads are okay, but in moderation. All right. And alternative pasta options. Here's some examples of lentil based pastas. There's different types of pastas that you can eat. We would prefer eating the wholesome source, but it's okay to have variety. Variety is the spice of life. And get yourself some lentil based pastas or alternative healthy pastas. And you can have those, but just don't want to go crazy. All right. So going back now to red zone. All right, so let's kind of categorize a red zone, and then we'll go into visual examples of it. Um, and so let's see. Let's make sure I'm covering any questions might came in. So Goldsmith hers, I think HRS says, I've tried eating this way, which I'm guessing by this way you mean plant based. My sugar would shoot up, especially with oatmeal. I'm frustrated. Definitely understand that. That's who we work with. This is the people we work with. I would love maybe if you wanted to reach out for a consultation. I don't charge for those, so we could talk about what may be your specific issue or what you're struggling with. The one thing I will say is that by and far where I see people who are plant-based who often come to me and saying I'm plant-based and I'm still having high blood sugars, is they're not tracking their fat intake. That's the first step. Okay, there's other things for sure. Well, that's the biggest thing. And it doesn't take just 1 day or 2 days. You got to do it for a few weeks of keeping your fat intake at 15, maximum 15% of your total calories. You won't know just by visually inspecting your food how much fat is in it. You will not know. So my advice to you is first step, make sure you're tracking your everyday fat intake, keeping it at 15%. It is a chore, I get that, but doing that for a minimum, I would say, of 6 weeks. Okay, being very consistent and keeping your fat low. I have not seen anybody where that did not improve their blood sugar levels. Okay, so please do that. And again, like I said, we provide free consultation. So just check the links in the description section. And I'm guessing it's Miss Goldsmith. I would love to help you. All right, so let's go to the red zone. So these are the foods that we are putting in red zone, which is kind of fun, interesting. Let me just kind of pause here. You would think that the red zone foods, um, a lot of these are foods are high in protein, right? And of course, come with fat. And you would think, well, that's the foods that a diabetic is supposed to eat because it's low carb and your sugars are normal when you're eating them, right? But I'm going to remind you guys what we say all the time, right? When we are eating high protein, high fat, we are not reversing insulin resistance. We are masking it, right? When we are limiting or lowering our carbs, you are just masking the symptoms of diabetes, right? You're not reversing the disease, which is insulin resistance. So by just by doing this for a time, you're going to see some improvements short term, right? But long term, and there's many studies that show that long term, you're going to run into some problems when it comes to longevity, a heart disease risk, cancer risk. So if this was the only way to manage your blood sugars, high protein, high fat, then of course do it. I would probably be an advocate because there's no other way. But there is another way, right? A healthier way, eating more fruits, more wholesome intact grains and starchy vegetables full of antioxidants and phytonutrients, right? Disease fighting chemicals, cancer providing chemicals, right? So these are the foods we're trying to reintroduce into our diet. But the only way we can do that is to eliminate those foods that are higher fat and protein, specifically saturated fat rich foods. So that's really the problem with most of these. And going back to the red zone, so all meat, eggs, vegan, a lot of vegan processed products. You see it in both sections here, but obviously this is to show you that there's a whole wide spectrum when it comes to vegan. So you want to look at, well, the first step is can you pronounce the ingredients, right? But watching the saturated fat intake was probably something you want to really pay attention to in every food you're eating. Not that all saturated fat or is bad, or should be zero saturated fat. That's impossible because even plants have some degree of saturated fat. You want to be low in your amount of saturated fat. And so if you're going to just track saturated fat alone, I'd say 5% of your daily calories. I think the Diabetes Association says 6% or something like that. So vegan processed products, veggie burgers, cheeses, ice creams, dairy products of any kind of oil, because oil is pure fat. So even those healthier oils, the extra virgin olive oil, again, for best results, My recommendations are probably stricter than most other people or most other programs because these are the things I see working for those who are most insulin resistant, those who come to me with decades long of diabetes. We want to go hard. We want to make sure every person has the best chance to get the results they deserve. So I give you the best advice, pulling in advice from many studies that have a lot of research behind them. Okay, sweeteners definitely can be a little complicated, but for the most part, I put all sweeteners in the red. Okay, but if I were to scroll here to the bottom of this list, um, there's definitely differences between sugar, pure sugar, and things like, and I'm not gonna go through these. You already know it's nothing health promoting in a lot of these, but oils, yes, we're going to eliminate or avoid or minimize at the very least. But if you're going to choose between let's say sugar, okay, here, and honey, or maybe maple syrup, maybe agave nectar, right, I would definitely say that as far as nutrient density or health benefits, there's a lot more health benefits in the above, right, compared to sugar, right, um, or artificial sweeteners, right? The sugar and artificial sweeteners will always be red in my book. I do allow honey in moderation, maple syrup maybe in moderation in your meals. I encourage it. If it's the only way you're going to, let's say, for example, eat your oatmeal is if there's some honey on it. Okay. If it's the only way that you find yourself drinking green tea, right? So for best results, the reason why I recommend trying to eliminate or avoid even things like honey is because it allows your taste buds to reset. The problem is many of us don't realize that our taste buds have been hijacked and polluted and diluted. All right, you will know this if you go long enough with a pure whole food plant-based diet with no processed ingredients, no additives, right? Because it does take long, maybe a few weeks. And I've noticed this myself. Your cravings start to change. Not only that, but you actually can taste the flavor of foods like you never did before. The greens taste greener. I don't know, like the colors just taste more colorful. In my opinion, it's allowing us to taste the food as God designed it to be tasted, right? But because we are so our taste buds are so bombarded with sugar and fat and salt, we can't recognize and appreciate all the flavors when we bite into a mango, for example, right? So that's why I would definitely recommend keeping for a while, even things like honey to a minimum. But if you have to, it's okay. All right, it's okay because the most important thing is we're limiting our fat intake, which is going to increase our tolerance for carbs. All right. Okay. All right. So, and Goldsmith, I see a question about protein intake. I know I was going to get that question. So the recommendation for protein intake is 0. You could probably want to write this down. So this is based on a lot of studies, and if you look, even just do a Google search, right? What's the daily recommended amount of protein intake? Is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So you may have to do a unit conversion there, but 0.8 grams of kilograms of body weight. You will find that most people, most women, that's probably going to be anywhere from 40 to 50 grams a day. Men, anywhere from, again, based on weight, anywhere from maybe 55, 60 to upwards to 80 grams a day, right? Depending on your weight. Of course, there's other factors like your activity level if you're extremely active, but that 0.8 is actually an overestimation of what's needed. So according to these studies, they were considering the fact that some people may need more than others, right, for various reasons. And that's why they actually rounded up to 0.8. So in reality, the average person needs less. This definitely deserves its own live protein, okay? And we'll have other past lives that talk about protein. But yeah, 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, according to all studies on protein, is enough to sustain health, okay, and beyond that, because it's an overestimation of what you need, right? um yeah, so someone said, I like the green yellow chart, makes sense, awesome, that's what I strive for, to make sense. So that's good. At the very least, I want it to make sense, I want it to be practical. So let me make sure I'm keeping with the time. I try to keep our lives at just 30 minutes, and especially considering my battery is about to get a little low. So let's make sure we get to our whole. Well, hopefully, while you're here tonight, what meals to eat? What do I eat, Doc? That's why I say, what do I eat? Right. So I was hearing. I'm always hearing people say that. What do I eat? Let's go to it. All right. So what do we eat? So well, let me go ahead and change the screen here and show you what we have. Um, well, I just have to probably just end this here. Okay. All right, let's just jump right to the meals. Okay. So, and then this is part of our meal garden. So we actually have a collection of close to 400 recipes, and we're always adding to that list. So this is something that if you are part of our newsletter, if you're not, let me know. You can get PDF downloads, but I will also give you examples of these recipes in downloadable format in our description section. So if you go to the description section of our video, you have these recipes in the link. If the link doesn't work, let me know. But so yeah, there's these recipes will be made available right directly to you in our description section. The first recipe, actually, let me see, is this in order? First off, let's see. All right, I wanted to start with breakfast meals first. Okay, so I like oatmeal. I really love oatmeal. Okay, and I know it's unfortunate that some of us, especially when we're diabetic, our body can't tolerate oatmeal. My first recommendation is for when it comes to oatmeal specifically is to try steel cut oats. Okay, or oat groats. You can or purchase these online. Oat groats or steel cut oats are more wholesome. You could see it. Actually, there's less. They're thicker, harder, right, than a refined and pressed oatmeal. So if you can imagine, as it goes through your digestive tract, it's going to take a lot longer to break down and release those starches into the bloodstream. So oat groats, king of oats, steel cuts, second best. If you want to start incorporating a very simple meal, oatmeal is very, very, very good for diabetes. There's actually been studies that put people on just an oatmeal diet, meaning they only ate oatmeal, okay, purely oatmeal, nothing else. And insulin sensitivity dropped, blood sugar levels normalized, fasting blood sugars levels, post meal blood sugars improved, A1C levels improved. We talked about a study where a woman was literally dying. They were on an ICU unit from hyperglycemia, and no amount of insulin they gave her would work. And basically, the doctors threw their hands up and they decided to try oatmeal, just gave her nothing but oatmeal, and her blood sugars normalized. Oatmeal did what insulin could not. Okay. So again, I would say, let's think about this though. Let's pause. No, how's that work? Because oatmeal is pure carbs. But look at this. Look how much fat is in oatmeal. I mean, what this is like a 17%, probably only because of the almonds that's added to it, right? So this is a oatmeal that calls for dried fruit and maybe nuts. And remove the nuts. This is a very extremely low fat meal. So if you're eating, and I'm not saying you have to eat nothing but oatmeal, but if you're eating oatmeal, right, you're eating a very low fat food. And as we talked about last week, when our body is in a low fat environment, nutritionally, right, in our diet, through our diet, the fat storage starts to get burnt, right? And our liver and our muscles, where those tissues are not designed to hold excess fat, they all of a sudden find themselves in a low fat environment. As you're eating low fat foods like oatmeal, the fat gets burned, and over days and weeks, you start to see your blood sugars improve, right? It takes time, right? All right, Dubal, type 1 diabetes dropping in. Awesome. Thanks for joining us. I've been working on a fruit and veggie diet. Love it. Love it. Keep it up, my friend. And please keep up with us. Let us know about your results. So oatmeal, what I love about oatmeal is that it's so versatile. That's why I decided to give you 3 options for breakfast. All right. So oatmeal is boring. Maybe you've been doing oatmeal for a while. You're trying to figure out some of the ways to prepare it. Okay. So first off, make sure you're adding things to it like dried fruits. Great option. Maybe little nuts and great option. But you could also do oatmeal pancakes, right? We have a recipe on YouTube, look it up. There's a lot of recipes though, but banana oatmeal pancakes, great, great, great breakfast option if you want to add oatmeal into your diet. So what's nice with these recipes that we're giving you, the ingredients right there on the left, and you could see the fat content on the right, where most of these are going to be 15%. Some of them are a little higher, like I think this one's saying about 20% fat. Some of them are going to be a little higher, but at the end of the day, it's going to average out because some meals might be 7% fat, right? And at the end of the day, as you're emphasizing low fat foods in your diet, you're going to see that your fat percentage is going to be low 10 to 15% range. Okay, so it's okay if you eat a meal that one meal that's 20% fat. It's okay, right? So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's clear. But yeah, oatmeal pancakes, we love these. These are delicious, man. I love starting my day out, especially on the weekends, with some oatmeal pancakes. Very, very good option. Just make sure you get a non-stick pan. It's a lot easier to make with one non-stick pan. Baked steel cut oats, or if you're tolerant of rolled oats, use rolled oats, right? Great option as well for oatmeal. What I like about this is that you can just literally make oatmeal like you would, right? Load it up. This is really loaded up. I mean, I think if I look a little closer, we added flaxseed to it, raisins, nutmeg, cinnamon, apples, bananas, vanilla extract, right? Just load it up with whatever you like, man. Whatever you want it to taste like, and bake it. After you cook it, it hardens, obviously, and cut it into blocks. And now you have almost like squares that you could eat and grab, maybe put in Ziploc bags, and you have breakfast every day, right? Easy meal prep. You bake a big pan, and you got a whole breakfast bar, essentially, ready to start your day every day. So oatmeal, great option, but not the only option for breakfast. I love tofu. And if you are a person that gave up on tofu because you had it a while back at some Chinese restaurant and it tasted like nothing, or maybe a friend's house, I don't know. Um, Try it again, okay? But do it my way, okay? Season it up. I like to take the tofu block. I like to work with firm or extra firm, but it's based on your preference if you want it softer or firmer. But then, and also how if you want to really firm, you press the water out, and then I usually use a fork or my hands. Make sure your hands are nice to wash, and crumble the tofu block, and then season it up. Right, curry is a great seasoning for tofu. I like to, if you really like to have the seasoning really hold, use low sodium Bragg's. Right, soy sauce. Right, so use or Bragg's amino acids. Sorry, and that really helps to lock in the flavor as you're cooking the tofu. Delicious. I mean, I haven't made this without being able to fool somebody um, into thinking they're eating eggs, scrambled eggs, right? So I don't know. Has anyone else been doing scrambled tofu like this? Please let me know. But that's how I do it. So I'll sometimes put chili powder, different spices, turmeric, garlic. One thing I always do is load it up with veggies. This is an opportunity because remember, tofu is a yellow zone, right? It's a little higher in fat. But still, tofu, all soy products, even though they get a really bad rap, are super health promoting. When you talk about women's health, cancer, breast cancer prevention, improving your hormone levels, right? Um, Immune system health, helping you to lower your cholesterol. There's been studies that tie it to lowering your blood pressure, right? So, of course, insulin sensitivity, weight loss, so many benefits of soy. I love it. All right. So definitely recommend it for breakfast. And like I was gonna say, add as much greens as you can to it. I like it to add kale and bell peppers and tomatoes and mushrooms, right? Baby spinach, right? Throw it in there, right? Make it colorful, make it pop. All right. So that's a great breakfast option. Let's go through it in our last few minutes together. All right, before my computer signs off. Okay, so we have apple, kale, and beet salad. This is like, I'm just sad that more people don't know about it. I can't remember which website I found this, and this is what I did. I compiled these recipes from other nutritional websites, but this one deserves a credit. Apple, kale, and beets, basically a great combination of nitrate-rich foods. So if you're talking about boosting your energy levels, you're talking about cancer prevention, you're talking about dropping your blood pressure, this is the thing to do it. Drizzle your favorite dressing on there. I like to make honey mustard dressing, so just a little bit of honey with Dijon mustard and balsamic vinaigrette or apple cider vinegar, any kind of vinaigrette dressing. Mix that together. Man, this thing pops. All right. And Heather 1538. Yes, you could find the tofu scramble on our Newsletter. So if you haven't gotten to the newsletter, that's where we give you free downloadable files. But again, description section has the recipe as well. Okay, and let's go through quickly. Um, Black bean stuffed sweet potatoes, really easy. You don't even have to be as fancy as this. This seems real fancy, but I just like to get a sweet potato, and I'll either bake it, I'll even microwave it sometimes, right? You want to get it soft enough where, well, first you stab it with fork, right, to get it that moisture to really lock in. And I'll get a sweet potato. Usually pair that with black beans or any kind of your favorite beans. If you don't have time to cook beans, just get the canned, right? And you could add, if you have the time, add corn, add maybe tomatoes. But I usually am pressed for time, so I'll just keep it simple: a sweet potato, some steamed broccoli, and beans. Done. If I have some hummus, if I've made hummus, I'll throw hummus on there. The problem with store-bought hummus is usually the oil. Man, you could see the oil just sitting on top of that hummus. You want to make your own. It's really easy to make. We have recipes on hummus as well for in our program. All right. So let's go through it. Now that's the nutritional facts, and then all right. I really apologize about that. All right. So my computer died, but I'm back. Okay. So I guess we could finish. We just had a few three more recipes to cover. So I appreciate you guys' patience for sticking with me. All right. And so chickpea curry, definitely worth making. And I'll say this: I am not a chef. Okay, if I can make this, then you can make this too. Okay, you don't have to make the chickpeas from scratch. You can again just use canned if you really are pressed for time. But very simple ingredients, right? So cumin, of course, is the main ingredient for most curries, or turmeric, I should say. And that's something that you can get even with all the seasonings in one seasoning bottle. But I usually use as a base quinoa or brown rice. Is usually my go-to favorite grain. So when I'm talking about eating grains, whole grains, if it's not oatmeal, it's usually brown rice or quinoa, right? Millet is another great option. We always talk about millet. We had a live talking about its benefits as far as resistant starch. Great option as well. But choose your grain and top that grain with chickpea curry. Great lunch, great dinner. What's nice about a lot of these is that you can eat them for lunch, you can eat them for dinner, right? You can even eat them for breakfast. So let's throw away the idea that we have to eat certain foods for certain times a day. As a matter of fact, if you remember, we talked about the principle of eating our biggest meals early in the day. We want to rest and digest at night and eat our lighter meals in the evening. All right, so we talked about our kale, spinach, and kale salad. Let's talk about roasted vegetables. How many of you guys are roasting your vegetables? You are missing a great opportunity to add variety if you are not. Okay, so Roasting vegetables is really, really easy. You doesn't take much work or much skill. So there are certain vegetables that will roast better than others for sure. Sweet potato, asparagus are definitely some of our favorites. But you can do carrots, you can do like I said, sweet potato or regular potatoes, parsnips. Just throw it in there. There, Brussels sprouts, great options to roast and really make sure you're increasing variety of vegetables into your diet in a fun way. And then I would usually pair that with maybe a legume or a whole grain, and makes a great meal that you could eat any time of the day. All right. And let's see. I think we have, is it just one more? Or is that, I think we might have bonus. Yeah, there's one more recipe. I would call this a bonus recipe. I love this: grilled portobello mushrooms. Whew. So if you're missing steak, okay, season your mushrooms like you would steak, okay? So get your same seasoning kit and use that on your mushrooms. And it grills well. You don't need oil, right? You can use something like, again, amino acids, Bragg's amino acids, or vegetable broth, whatever you want to grill it with. It will. There's enough moisture in the mushroom to grill itself. Okay, so grill that baby up, grill it like you would a steak, and pair that with I like to pair it with broccoli, or you could add just any greens, really. Great because it has so many benefits, mushrooms, not just for diabetes, but for many health benefits, digestive system health, immune system cancer fighting. Um, there's also studies that tie it to longevity. Just a great meal to include on a day or weekly basis. Mushrooms should be added to your shopping list. Okay, that's it. That's all we got. I think that is just a really good example. Of course, there's many more recipes that we can share with you guys, but this is a really good start. If you want to check out the link is in our description section. In our description section, we also have a link if you want to get personalized support. If you have been doing this alone and feeling stuck, you don't need to be stuck, okay? We are here for you. We've been doing this for a long time. And I guarantee any question you have, I can either find the answer if I don't, but most likely I have it. I've experienced it with someone else who is in your shoes, who's struggling to reverse insulin resistance of all types of diabetes. So, at the end of our episodes, we have to give everyone that opportunity, of course, to let you know that it's in the description section if you want a consultation and you want to figure out what's missing, what am I doing wrong, or I'm doing everything good, but is there something I can do better? Then book that call and see if there's an answer we can give you that might turn things around for you. And of course, if possibly, having a 3 month one-on-one support system might be something you really need, right? That will be an option provided during our call. So I don't think we have any other questions. I think someone at Nicole asked if I can get the full recipe. Yes, the full recipes of everything we shared is in our description section. So definitely jump in and grab that. All right. We are here every Monday at 7 p.m. With the exception of next week, we'll be resuming after that. All right, beloved, I pray above all things that you may prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. We'll see you next week. Oh, not next week, the week after next.